Welcome, everybody, to the 34th episode of the Advisor Tech Book Live podcast. I always rush those first few words and then I just mumble them all. Anyway, today's guest is Joshua Wilson, Dr. Joshua Wilson. And we're going to talk about all kinds of very cool things. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. So the big question is, especially with the recent release of Hazel AI tax planning altruist, a lot of legacy custodian shares are plunging on the stock market. Who knows if it's related or not. uh, People are acting like it's related. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, I think so. Um, I think that we're trying to digest what AI means. This kind of came up just yesterday night. I tagged you in my response on, I believe it was Johnny, I think it was Johnny Sanquist's post.
Yep.
And basically the question was about, is this is what we're seeing just, robo advisor scare 2.0? And I was saying that I think AI is pretty different than robos. Robos really raised the floor for what had already been commoditized, right? Or mostly commoditized, the most commoditized part of advice, at least, right?
Yep.
And investing is mostly a pretty narrow lane, but AI is unbounded. It can address so many things that we're doing, and so we're still trying to understand and digest just all the different ways this threatens the supply chain. And you know, I think it's also about this distinction where robo advice was about a choice. People are going to choose a robot instead of you, and that's very important. This has nothing to do with choice. At the fringes there are robo advisors, absolutely, and yes, they'll I think that's going to, if anything, it'll make advice more common and accessible to a lot of people. But I think the bigger thing is the separation between AI is not a choice. It's embedded everywhere and it doesn't require people to choose it. People will be choosing AI when they think they're choosing better service, faster, more complete, lower fees, all the different things that this can go into. It won't be a choice of AI. AI will just be a mechanism that's embedded into everything else. So
Well, it's,
I
it's
think
just better software, right? I mean, quite simply, it's just software made a quantum leap forward. It's it's not. Is it more than that?
I think that's a lot of it. I also think that it's about what it enables the human to do, and I think it pushes the value up higher on the chain.
Yeah.
You know, the the more that we can raise the base on what the bare minimum is and what an advisor offers, the more expectations go with that. And the more an advisor can do, the more they will do because they're trying to just stay ahead of the competition. So much of what we do is just trying to stay ahead of the other advisors and keep our fees justified. And so this has been great for clients because while advice fees haven't come down as nearly as dramatically as people thought, even though that advice layer was attacked, advisors have added more value to it. And so now we can add even more value to that chain, and one person can add a lot more value by eliminating all this friction. And so the value it gets compressed to from information because everybody has information. Everybody can appear smart. Everybody can appear to have a framework. Even frameworks and playbooks are being compressed at a crazy rapid rate. You can take a playbook and you can commoditize it. Playbook itself used to be a big differentiator. Now you
Yeah.
can take a playbook and you can put it into action. And
Right.
so, as more of these things that used to be valuable get compressed into AI, the value just moves up change into interpretation, into not just storytelling or something, but actually an embodiment of the narrative. So I see why I should trust you because information is just it's everywhere now. Information is noise. Everybody can produce information. We can synthesize information, put it out there. And what if anything, this reminds me of is of the discount broker. Now, this is that on steroids, but
Sure.
the big change there was before you had to go to an advisor to get information. So they were the holders of information. Then once information was disseminated with the internet and with discount brokers, then we saw the world where okay, now I need somebody to interpret these things for me. And now it's information is everywhere. Everyone's got it. It all seems the same. And so sameness is actually multiplying at a dramatic rate. And the actual value is going upstream into, as you've talked about, that human element.
Yeah, I don't know what it used to cost to like buy a share of a stock. Let's say like I want to buy some Sears stock or some like really old company. You might have paid your broker, I don't know, 100 or 200 bucks to like buy some Sears stock. Then when I started trading, it was $7 a trade on like TD Ameritrade, Scott Trade, Charles Schwab. And then the per trade went away. Now it's $0 a trade. And then it got into fractional shares. So now you're not even buying whole shares, you're buying bits of a share.
That's why the
Um,
mutual fund was so innovative. It was because there was a time where this was the market for this was there was no one was charging AUM fees, right? It was just
yeah,
commissions. So it might be $500, it might be 1,000, might be $2,000. So it wasn't just a trade. It was kind of the advice embedded into it. So you might pay a couple $1,000s for a trade.
yeah,
So even if you had to deal with an advisor where you were getting $200 a trade, that would have been considered a deal at one point in history. So
okay,
going into a mutual fund and saying, okay, you don't have to have those trading fees. Now we can actually get diversification because think about it. If you were trying to get 10 stocks with $100,000, I mean, and you're paying $500 or even $200 per trade, it's
yeah,
hard to get diversified very quickly. So,
for sure,
it's funny the things that we thought that were, mutual funds are expensive is kind
yeah,
of the idea now is actually that was extremely cheap when they came on the market. And then of course the index fund was something different. And this is pushing it to a whole new level. And we just keep innovating to the point and we think that these little micro technology innovations are differentiators and they very quickly become minutia because they aren't really addressing the things that people care about unless they're the people that love the minutia, and that's typically the client that you don't want to begin with.
the DIYers, yeah, that's
Mhm.
interesting. I kind of grew up in like the financial blogger space, like the budgets are sexy and the financial samurai,
Oh yeah,
uh, and all of them were talking about Vanguard funds and like the VTSAX, I think the
yeah,
Vanguard like total stock market fund was like all the rage.
yeah,
They were all preaching, and I don't know, it was like 7 basis points, and I think now there's funds that are like 3 basis points, 4 basis points,
yeah,
and now like index or direct indexing is getting popular, where
yeah,
you actually buy the underlying investments directly. Um, but I think that the interesting conversation is like the value. So like the robo advisors made the investing part a commodity. I think the altruist Hazel is going to make. I'm glad they made a Hazel LinkedIn page now, so they can actually tag Hazel as its own entity as opposed to altruist.
yeah,
Um, but the value of tax planning is now going to be commoditized. The value of estate planning is going to be commoditized. So what is left?
yeah.
This is the big question.
Yeah, I think so. The easy answer is the human element is what's left, and obviously I'm biased to the point that I've bet my career on it. Yeah, I think that the human is a differentiator, and I think that a lot of the things that we're calling human are really just very basic psychology that people are used to and they're getting accustomed to. And a lot of the things that we think are making a difference are very much becoming par for the course. I mean, a lot of the things that we talk about as innovative in wealth management when it comes from a marketing standpoint, they're still 10, 15 years behind what SAS was doing and
Yeah.
other things as well. So I think that this is moving beyond tactics and into what actually makes the human marketable rather than just marketing. My thesis, Joe, is that marketing is not broken. Marketing is how we get our message out there, and how we get our message out there, the tactics that we use, and even the psychological underpinnings of what makes those messages effective at a base level. That's becoming commoditized because of AI. And so the marketing tactics aren't broken. We know how to get our message in front of people. We know how to optimize these things. The hard part is the marketability.
Yeah. Um, what is a human? I tried asking this to one of my other guests, and they were like, "Sorry, I gotta drink some wine before I try to answer something like that."
What is a human?
What is a human?
It's not AI. Yeah, I mean, a human is someone that's created in the image and likeness of God, of our
Yeah.
Creator. And because of that, it has a human is unique in the universe in being able to actually have something that is have an interaction with the world and the environment that's beyond its most base needs. We have the ability to actually slow down, analyze things. We develop identities that are beyond mere survival, and we can do that most effectively when our survival feels certain. And so this is why, from a most basic evolutionary psychology lens, that then gets into behavioral economics of this, that so much of marketing is about, or at least uh, psychology is about safety, right? This is why novelty matters. This is why tribal signals matter, belonging matters, because all these things are telling us if we're safe or not, and if we can relax into other things that are deeper into our identity. The thing about, and this is one thing differentiates from AI is is still no identity signal. And so when people are connecting and information is everywhere. One of the interesting things about the brain is that it has the ability to turn up or turn down its filters. So for example, you and I are talking one on one. If all of a sudden one of us walked into a very noisy room, we wouldn't be and someone talked to us, that person could hear us talking.
Sure.
We can hear them because our brain is not adapted to that noise level. You give us a couple of seconds and our brains adapt, and now we can focus in and eliminate all the other distraction. And that's what happens in marketing. The more people we say, oh, scale this and create this, and everybody's creating, everybody's scaling, noise is going up. So what happens is our brains adapt and our filters get stronger. So what worked before doesn't work. Basic psychology now gets filtered out. Basic psychology is always talking to the mean. And so that gets filtered out with more noise. So now it's not who has the information, it's who do I want to pay attention to? And how do I decide? By the way, when I say decide, I do not mean consciously. This is a pre conscious decision. That's why I like to say that the brain decides before the mind knows.
Yeah.
'Cause these are pre-rational things that are happening that are saying, okay, I'm going to pause and listen to this person. I want to get the information from this person rather than this person. When everybody's got the same information, why do I choose one versus the other? And that will be the value when estate planning is commoditized and tax planning is commoditized, and all these things I can get from anybody that I want. It comes down to who do I want to get them from, and how much work do I have to do to make the decision on who I'm going to pay attention to. Most advisors, we're in the habit, and by the way, fintech leaders as well, because we're very left-brained people. We analyze. And so we tend to put other people in their analytical brain. And when we
Yeah.
do that, it creates
Yeah.
work that they don't want to do. So the easier we can make it for them to choose us, that's where that's what I mean by marketability.
Okay. Yeah. So marketability, and this goes back to Josh Brown's post, which is like, be a likable human, be a good human. Um, so what was your point in your comment on his post? And then maybe you want to explain what marketability is. Um,
Sure, sure. So Josh had made a I forget exactly what he said. Yeah, so it was about being likable. So I think that's great advice. First off, it is, um, but I think my point was that similarly, tactics are everywhere. It's kind of what I said before. Is they're getting copied. Things can be copied easier than ever. Playbooks become commodities, but upstream of that, when you think about, it's still an authentic story, still a nurture sequence, it's still a funnel. Information becomes very cheap, and clients will end up choosing the advisor they want to get it from. Um, and that's what I mean by, it's not marketing, it's not how you get in front of people, not how you touch people. This is the same way, same thing when we talk about engines, like the prospecting tools of email. Okay, that's just another touch point. It's another way to get in front of people.
right.
Okay, great. But why are some people having more success with it than others? Okay,
Sure.
some of it's tactical, like do you follow up? Do you have all these sorts of things? But the marketability is what I'm focused on because that's the signal that you can't scrape. Now, take a step back. What is marketability? Well, if we're talking like conventional business language, it's based. Sorry about that.
It's all
Thought I
right.
had everything muted here, but apparently I didn't.
So that's
So
a good thing. So that's a human thing. So humans make mistakes, and that's actually what makes humans more relevant and maybe even more marketable
yeah,
because
absolutely, absolutely.
everybody can relate to what the experience you just went through. Because I mean, my phone went off or some kind of alarm went off a couple days ago on a podcast. Like, it's relatable because it's a little bit like embarrassing, and that AI doesn't get embarrassed. AI doesn't have
Yeah,
emotion. AI
I'm gonna go
doesn't.
ahead and turn my phone off because I thought I had it on mute. I literally muted it, and so I'm just turning it off now because I apparently don't know what I'm doing on that. But yeah,
That's okay.
marketability is your traditionally is just your ability to attract and convert demand, right?
Okay.
And when people say brand, they're usually meaning like logo, website, niche clarity, the packaging, the positioning, all that stuff. And that's not wrong, but I would argue it's incomplete. To me, it doesn't start with metrics. I think we have to start with the brain because the brain is deciding before the mind is even understanding that it's choosing. So, marketability is not about persuasion, it's about pre alignment.
Okay.
So, I tend to think of it as a structural coherence between who you are, who you serve, and how the brain forms trust. And most marketing is operating at the level of average psychology, the mean. And so, what I'm trying to do with my lens is move from how do I persuade humans to which humans specifically does my natural signal align with. And first off, that becomes isolating my actual signal versus the things I've picked up on the marketplace.
Okay.
And also from just simple professionalism, because there's basic decorum of operating within this profession and how we speak and things like that. We need to pull apart the beta. I call this brand beta. And I've got a paper coming out on brand beta, by the way. So maybe I shouldn't have
Okay.
been pre talking about this, but this is brand beta. This is the things that are just like, this is market, this is systemic, and people talk about my brand all the time, and they're talking about brand beta. It's not the things that are actually differentiated. Okay, so part of this is identifying what actually is it that's that we can select for emotional alignment, because marketability is selective emotional alignment, not general emotional alignment. And yes, we should start with general emotional alignment. And yes, we should start with Psych 101, urgency and all that sort of stuff. But here's the thing, if everyone feels mildly understood, then nobody feels chosen. No one feels like you're talking to them. This is not honing in. We can talk about niche all day long, and that's a great place to start. One of my clients put it best the other day. She said, I did this whole niche thing and sales thing and define my ideal client, all this thing about 10 years ago, and it really upped my game. I thought it was amazing. And then I've started looking through the things I've been doing with you, and I realized I'm like, okay, that stuff was basic. It was
Sure.
innovative at the time,
Right.
but now I'm actually seeing what's magnetic about me, how I'm identifying and then expressing these things about me coherently across my signal, because this is the point where your internal wiring, your positioning, your narrative, and then your delivery align. That allows the brain to relax, and relaxed brains buy.
Relaxed brains buy. That's pretty good all by itself. I think humans spend an enormous amount of energy trying to fit in. Like they expend so much energy trying to fit in that they have very little energy left to find their unique signal in a way.
That's a great point. That's a great point. We're first trying to fit. We're first trying to fit, and I think that we underestimate the amount of time that and effort that we're spending trying to show a world that doesn't even understand our tribe that we belong in this certain tribe, while telling them that we're different. And we're telling them that we're different, but they don't see it.
Yeah. Um, and successful people don't fit in. Like they're some of the weirdest people, and I feel like they've almost they make choices like wear the same shirt every day, or Michael Kitz's wear the blue shirt thing,
Yeah, yeah.
or Josh Brown and Michael Batnick are like wearing all kinds of random clothes on every podcast. Like sometimes they're dressed to the nines, and sometimes they're wearing a t-shirt and like a baseball hat, and like
Yeah, yeah.
joggers. It looks like, um, but I think what they are doing is they're being themselves, and I think the the more that so it's almost like you spend 18 years trying really hard to fit in, and then you can spend the next 40 in your work environment trying to fit in, and then try to retire, and you won't be very happy. Or at some point, you can say, "I'm going to stop trying to focus on fitting in, and I'm going to focus on blending out in a way."
Yeah, I think that's true. I think where this has to go, Joe, because that's great advice. But then we think about, okay, 2.0. It the advice to be yourself is great if you know who you are,
Yeah,
or if you're not accidentally doing these things already. That's the thing, is we tend to underestimate how much of our success, and by the way, this is not unique to anyone. This is humans. This is all of us. We tend to underestimate how much of our success is due to luck. We tend to overestimate the amount of our failures that are due to luck. And so oftentimes, we can be hitting it on certain things and missing it on others. And so the luck is, hey, I happened to hit it on these things and stumbled into some things. And frankly, part of my, you can call it obsession, I guess, with what I'm doing, with where my career has gone, the obsession that led to where I'm at was stumbling onto some things that were actually magnetic about me and being like, wow, that was really effective. And how in the world I worked so hard at all these other things, and it was getting me, I was grinding it out. And then I did this and it just seemed to flow for me. Why did that happen? How did I stumble into these things? And so that's the thing, is most of us tend to have things that are buried that we don't understand, or that it takes too long to get out.
yeah,
So if you're gold, I said this to an advisor the other day. It's like 40 minutes into the conversation, I was like, wow, this guy is extremely marketable. It took me 40 minutes to decide that. I mean, and then I got it, and I found the thing that I'm going to pursue. Like, that's it. That's the angle. I've dug. I've dug. I've dug. I've dug. This is not something that you get with a template. It's something that required a lot of digging, and that can be tough, especially when we're when our tendency is efficiency, and
Yeah.
identity doesn't work that way. It's easy for us to optimize for tactics. And so when we optimize for tactics before identity, then we end up leading with credentials instead of our worldview. We end up choosing niches logically instead of emotionally. And then
Mm.
we end up scaling sameness. We end up doing lots of things and collective. We end up becoming collectors. I call it DNA collectors. You know, I've told this story before. You may have heard me tell this story, Joe, but were you in Book It as a kid?
No.
Oh, well, you'd be more successful if you were, because all the
Okay.
most successful people I know are in Book It. So there's this silly program that Pizza Hut had where
Oh,
if
actually,
you
no, I do remember Book It. Yeah.
okay, so then now
I just Pizza Hut came to mind, but I
Pizza
didn't know that it
Hut.
was called Book It. I
Okay, I was about to say I don't know how you've done so well without
Yeah.
going through Book It. Now it makes sense. I was like, imagine what Joe could have done if he might be Elon Musk with Book It. But yeah, so you get this big red cup and you'd go get Dr. Pepper and Coca-Cola and Mountain Dew and all in the same cup. We called it a suicide. I've heard other people call it tornado. And the thing was, is it tasted like everything. You got a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that's how we work now. We listen to lots of podcasts and we read lots of books and we listen to lots of speakers. And we're always saying, well, I'll just take this from this guy, this from this girl, this from this. And so we end up taking all these things and we forget what's actually us because we've taken all of these different things. So when I do discovery, that's why it's so much about going from the bottom up and coming at it from a different angle. Because when you come at things from the typical business angle, you get rehearsed answers. You can't ask people the typical questions and expect to get actually deep answers that are really getting to what actually drives them at an identity level.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want to scale. We don't want to scale the stuff that they've learned.
Yeah. No, I think that maybe it's a weird thing or a good thing, but part of what I try to do is ask questions that other people don't ask. Um,
Great strategy. I love that.
which is like, I don't know. We got a like from Alex. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Um, so like, what is the transformation? So I recently talked to Steven, and she helps financial advisors go through a health transformation. It's like 100-day. You know, most financial advisors aren't too focused on their health, but they have a lot of money, and so she helps them like get healthy in 100 days. What's the transformation that you felt like you help financial advisors with from like point A to point B?
Yeah, so advisors are starting with sameness. A lot of the advisors I work with are either they've got to the point where they're saying, "Okay, I've grown from what I call R&R, relationships and referrals,
Okay.
and I want to get to a point now where I'm actually generating demand."
Okay.
And that's a very different ask because now when you're going bottom up, it allows you to have a relationship that is your that give lets you have a slow burn and you have a referral or you have a relationship, you're building it over time and network. So you have all this trust. So the differentiation is less important because of the way that you're getting into it. But when you take that message and you try to scale it, you suddenly realize how undifferentiated it is. Because that message, that signal can't carry the weight in an open market. It can carry the weight when you're talking to a referral or someone that you know from the whatever club because we're starting from the relationship. But when we're coming down, I need a brand that generates the interest.
Okay.
If your brand doesn't generate the interest, because most of the stuff has been brand that just has to be professional. It just has to carry a signal that's already been generated, a connection that's already been generated. So you can template that. But if you're trying to actually attract attention, then we're saying, okay, well, how do I discover what actually makes me interesting and to whom? I believe that everyone is magnetic, but average psychology doesn't move people anymore. People are optimizing Psych 101 levers: urgency, scarcity, authority, social proof. storytelling hooks, all that stuff. And so, but in this moving at that average level of psychology, that doesn't help us. We need a selective emotional alignment. So what we do from the bottom up is I help advisors understand first off. So I put people through multiple tests. We do a personality test, strengths test, a narrative archetype test. I do interviews with advisors to understand who they are, their story, talk to them about a lot of different things. So there's a lot of bottom up that comes with this. And the point of it is to understand what actually makes them magnetic and to whom.
Okay. Yeah.
Oftentimes we find that people, I've been trying to market to these people, but I'm not using the right words.
Yeah.
I am naturally very appealing to these people based on the psychographics and based on my story or stories that can show that I'm the right person for them. So when we're building an offer, I want to be showing these people, first off, who do you have an advantage with? So the little story I tell advisors is, my brother played football at Auburn. My cousin played football at Alabama. I came along 14 years later, much younger than the others. Do you think when I was born, my family said, well, he's probably going to be another ballerina? Of course not.
Right.
They said, he's probably going to be big like his brother and cousin. Probably should put him into football.
Right.
Okay. Why don't we do that with psychology? It's the same thing. We look for where we have an inroads. And so we're looking for particular psychological profiles that we actually have an advantage with. And being myself a specific offer that solves a specific problem in an emotionally compelling way. And can we say that in a way that is both direct and ways that are actually indirect? And this is where the narrative comes in, because we need to show that we are the person that's best to solve this problem, not just because I'm educated, but because of it's me. You're choosing me to be the one that carries the signal. So when we're doing this discovery work with advisors, the transformation is I go from just being another voice to being a voice that this guy with this problem and these psychographics, he can't ignore.
Yeah.
So it's like it's everything you learned on the niche stuff, but bottom up instead of top down. We're discovering brand. Brand is not is a byproduct of what I do. So I do a lot of brand development with advisors, developing their point of view, developing how they're going to approach the market. How do I bring this this message to a market that doesn't sound like everyone else? What am I standing for? What am I standing against? How am I relaying these messages in a way that is actually authentically me without just spewing be authentic? Because that's the thing. So many advisors and so many everybody, we say these generic fluff things like, just be authentic. Okay, well, most of us don't even know that we're being if we're being authentic or not. We say we're being authentic, we're really imitating, or we're really just defaulting to professionalism that we don't really realize is not differentiated at all. So when we do this, now an advisor is stepping into who has said, I didn't realize I had a brand. I was actually doing this pretty well, but it's coming in way too late. I need to move this to the beginning. And then there's these other things that are very magnetic about me that I've never stepped into, because that's the thing. People aren't doing the identity work. We're just optimizing for tactics. And that's why, and I have clients that are marketing firms, and they'll come to me and say, okay, we've been doing the same exact tactics for this firm and this firm and this firm, and we're killing it with this one. We're okay with this one, and this one sucks. We've optimized it to death. Why?
Yeah.
Well, it's the same tactics, but how it hits the market is different. I got a piece coming out in 2 weeks that I'll have to send you, but it's about these layers. The traditional marketing is tactical, it's a tactical layer with a strategy layer that's really a tactical strategy, the strategy for how we're going to implement these tactics.
Okay.
What it ignores is the signal layer, right? Of how the signal that we're putting out to the market. And then under that is a pressure layer of how does this actually hit the market? How do we respond then?
Okay.
And marketing doesn't hit those two things. In a place where it's the Wild West and people have not been marketed to, because remember, this is very important. Most people don't talk about this, is marketing in financial services is relatively new.
When I was getting into the business, you never saw a commercial for RIAs.
Yeah.
Just people didn't know what they were.
Right.
Like it was pretty relatively unknown. The word fiduciary actually sold. Now everybody is using it, and it's become. I'm not saying you shouldn't say you're a fiduciary. Don't overdo this, but a lot of these things of just basic marketing, we weren't doing anything. Everything was relationships and referrals. So actual marketing tactic. When you go from no tactics to tactics, yes, everything is better. But now we're getting to this point where all these tactics are becoming commoditized.
Yeah.
Everybody can get. I get because I click. I'm interested, so I get ads for advisors all the time.
Yeah.
I'm always getting ads for advisors, big
Yeah.
advisors, little advisors, all these things I get. Tactics are everywhere. So your ideal clients are getting them as well. Why do they pay attention to some and not others? Well, one way is to just outspend everybody, right? If you can have the highest CAC, you will win. Just the mere exposure effect, right? And you're there at the right time and it's easy. Okay, fair enough. But if you can't win the war of CAC, then you have to have a signal that you embed into everything that makes people stop and say, this is someone I want to listen to. This is my guy. This person gets me.
Yeah.
And then all the other stuff becomes confirmation. So they're getting into a meeting, not having to bombard you. Instead of so much of an interview, it's a confirmation because they're
Right.
already at that pre-rational level saying, this is the guy that I want to work with. When you ask them why they hired you, they'll say you were a CFP, blah, blah, blah. Why? Because they're going to go rationalize and
Sure.
tell that. But that's not it. That's how they rationalize it.
Yeah.
So you go from being just another voice and what I call the credential choir. I'm a CFP. I'm holistic. I'm comprehensive, and all these things. To being just another voice in that choir, sounding and blending in to being a voice that is going to be absolutely unignorable to a demographic. That you actually stand out, not just because I say I serve this community, but because they're getting you at a pre-rational level that they're deciding this is who I want to work with before I've even heard the fee.
Yeah, I've heard this said a couple different ways. One of them is you are the niche. Another one is, a niche of one. Personal branding obviously is popular. I think
Yeah.
what you're talking about is a bit deeper than just personal branding, which is true identity. But I almost feel like there's I call some people Zen now. It's like there's almost like a blossoming, grassroots growth of like Zen type pursuits within financial services.
Mm.
Just like life coaching in a way, but almost like body, mind, and soul like alignment type coaching for financial advisors, which is interesting.
Yeah. I
Um,
think that comes up a lot.
so yeah, I said this for the first time to someone yesterday because they were looking for big ideas for 2026, and one was I think AI is going to cause a spiritual revival.
Yeah.
I think humans are just going to be really, really interested in like what is the point of everything? Um, like, why
Yeah.
me? Who am I? What am I here for?
This is the funny thing, Joe, and I think that this kind of hits in the why, like why this is so we're going deeper now. Like why is this a problem and where is it going? So I think that we have breadth inflation and depth decline. And
Yeah,
I think we're seeing a thirst for depth. And think about this: the average professional, and by the way, when I say average, that's not a. I don't mean that to be negative. I'm calling myself the average professional.
sure.
Right? So the average professional consumes constantly. Like
Right.
I have to plan, like, hey, I'm going to go on a walk and I'm not listening to anything. I'm going to hear
Yeah.
a bird today because I'm always listening. Books, I read, podcasts, I listen, threads, I read, clips, I'm consumed when and so more breadth. And we confuse familiarity with mastery. We recognize things and mistake that for internalized. We hear things and mistake that for embodied. Like, oh, yeah, I know that. I read that book. But I think the future is really going to belong to depth while everyone is expanding breadth. And we do this, from psychologically, we can talk about why we do this. It's called schema compression. When someone hears something new, the brain asks, where does this fit into what I already know? We all do it.
Yeah.
That's schema compression. So
You
we
have
would
to. You like the brain has to take shortcuts constantly in order
absolutely,
to
absolutely,
survive.
absolutely. So when we do this, because it's all trade-offs, right? And it's all, and if we understand what we're doing, then we can pause and say, hold on, my tendency is to schema compress. What am I going to do about this? Because when I do this, the trade-off, what I'm gaining is I save calories, I save effort, I save cognitive load. Okay. But I reduce new ideas into old categories
Yeah.
to lower my cognitive load. It saves time, but it kills nuance. And
Yeah.
then inquiry ends and we don't get better because we've just, I recognize, move on, recognize, heard, got it, but we're not internalizing. We're not, because the nuance and the expertise is in the nuance. This reminds me of a post that weird that Johnny Sandquist, I'm about to give him a shout out. Johnny Sandquist has had some great posts lately that's got me interested in commenting, and he's had a great nuanced post about the other day about something to do with search data online, and I said to him, like, thank you for bringing nuance to the timeline.
Yeah.
There's so much fluff that's there, and yeah, we're trying to get attention and those sorts of things, but expertise lives in the nuance, and so much of us are trying to. We've grown up in this culture of I passed the class, like I understood, but that's not embodiment. We want cognitive closure, and ambiguity is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But depth requires sitting in it. And people like me and people like you who are high information people, we want rapid categorization. And if you are an advisor and you're doing all that, you want rapid categorization. We want to file ideas fast and move on.
Yeah.
But the real differentiation requires that unresolved thinking.
So like with AI, I'm like trying to see it black and white. It's either good or it's evil. But the reality is AI is a bit nuanced. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I think so. AI eliminates shallow complexity.
Yeah. No,
And so what remains is the human nuance.
right.
So if we can use, and think about this, you can insert anything into this, any technology into AI. Obviously, I think AI is exponential in a way that we haven't understood before. And I'm still wrapping my noodle around it also. But you can insert the internet into this and talk about all the terrible things that the internet did.
Yeah.
Right. You can think about all the things the terrible things that cars did and airplanes and any technology is going to disrupt. I think that the scary thing about this is it allows humans to not have to develop basic human skills in order to survive. That's what really scares me, is that we will have a hyper class of knowledgeable and effective people and a rising class of people who do not want to think, only want to consume. And it's just the next thing, the next dopamine hit. And they will be, I think we already have a significant class of that the market, the value that they add to the market is below what it costs to survive. And AI speeds that up dramatically and will leave more humans wondering, why do I exist? and what is my purpose here, and also having the ability to not have to think at all in order to exist.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Wall-E, the little robot on
No, I
Earth?
haven't.
Okay. But like all the humans are off in some spaceship and they're all incredibly overweight, like sipping on these big Slurpees and watching TV basically. Um and then they all have to like get up and start walking around and stuff. But it's interesting when um who was it? Mark Heinen quoted something like, humans are going to be like house cats in the future and the AI robot will do everything for them. And I was like, I don't think we'll get there. I don't think humans are just going to sit around and AI is going to do everything. But
Yeah, well, I think that, I think that the incorrect way would be to say humans. I think we need to think this in terms of I don't know the word.
people,
Well, when we say I don't like humans will do X as a binary. That's my problem
okay, I
because
see.
I think that it's incorrect to assume that all people will react in the same way. When I say productive, okay, I mean the people that were productive are finding ways to be even more productive. They're getting on the edge of this, and they're finding ways to reduce the noise and get them the good stuff. They're deciding what they want to go hyper deep on. Okay, and I'll be very frank. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to stay aware of a lot of things,
Yeah,
but go hyper deep and some other things. And here's the thing: industries always defend lanes. Marketing defends marketing, tech defends tech, advisors defend advisors, but AI dissolves these categories.
yeah,
So advantage is going to move upstream into identity, into worldview, into narrative coherence, which is so much deeper than we can having to go in 10 minutes, but just the cohesiveness of the narrative that you bring to the solutions that you're and the problems that you're solving. Why are you the person that does this? How do you say that and get that across quickly without being direct and getting into, and again, I'm not hating on psychology 101. I'm just saying that it's starting to annoy people. Like the fake urgency. How
oh,
much do you see fake urgency all the time? And
absolutely.
and social proof that you're like, oh my God.
Testimonials, yeah, walls of testimonials on a
Yes,
website. It's really annoying.
yes,
I do you have 10 extra minutes at the end of the hour? Or do you have
absolutely.
something else? Okay,
Oh,
let's give ourselves 20 more minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I love that the Kits' research is absolutely agreeing with everything that you're saying. On the Kits' financial planning summit, firms that focus on quality and depth make twice as much money as firms focused on efficiency. And I literally think the people that go hard after AI will make half as much money as the people that work really hard on the depth and the magnetism and the human aspect of all of this. Um, and that's why I think AI is twofold. I think AI will be very bad for a lot of humans. I mean, like you've
Yeah.
mentioned, like some humans, AI is going to destroy their lives, potentially like completely destroy them. But for other people, I think AI will push so many people that are maybe in like a mediocre state, like in a just getting by state, it will push them to be like, what is the point? And I think they will go on a quest for like a deeper purpose. And that's pretty exciting, to be honest.
I think so. That's so Marshall Smith. He and I were just talking yesterday, and this kind of came up. We think that this is going to cause some people that have been comfortably numb, very smart, intelligent people that have kind of been secure enough, like that you're secure enough. I'm making a good salary. I've always kind of wanted to do this other thing. Deeply knowledgeable in a certain domain, and I have the technical skills, but I don't know how to bring things to market. I don't know how to sell it. I don't understand how people make decisions. I don't understand how to raise capital. I don't under like these sorts of things that have more of a human element in it that need actually more of a
coaching thing to it. And I think that there's, some great surface level solutions for coaching, but ultimately, a machine can't hold the emotion in the room. And one of the things that Marshall said to me yesterday was, I'm trying to remember exactly how he said it. Something like, the human condition is that everybody wants other people's jobs to be automated, to improve life.
Sure. Right. But not
But
their own job.
yeah, it would improve my life if everybody else was automated.
Yeah.
But we think that we're special,
Right.
right? And of course, because that's a defense mechanism, and our ego protects us and that sort of thing. And so, but bigger picture, we're going to see a identity crisis when people start to watch what they thought was their differentiate. Well, yeah, but I've got 30 years experience. Yeah, but I've got 20 years experience. And okay, well, what now? Where do I derive my identity from now? This identity that I've not spent time exploring in order to bring it to light in my marketing. And I think that there'll be some scrambling for that, but there'll also be some people that get pushed out and probably pushed towards something that's been sitting, idle inside of them forever. They'll need a new way to succeed, and that pushing them out of the nest will have them fly, but others will crash.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about like Gen 1 and Gen 2, maybe even Gen 3 advisors. Someone just today brought up the great wealth transfer, and I was like, wealth is always transferring. People are always dying, and money is always coming down. I think that AI is going to transfer money from lazy people to people that are seeking the depth. Um, I think I think actually we're going to see. I mean, Root Financial is just a fantastic case study for that. Like a lot of people are focused on inorganic growth and like M&A. And, I was talking to James and he's like, I don't think about it as organic versus organic or inorganic versus organic. I just think of it as growth. And so many of his perspectives are just so refreshing because he's like, I don't even think about our industry very much. He's like, I think they do a lot of things very badly. He didn't say that specifically, but like, I was like, yeah, and he's successful. And I think that's really cool to see that
Yeah.
these concepts actually work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that we think about not thinking about our industry much. And I think that's good in certain ways and probably bad in others. I mean, we think about, why is our industry prone to the problems we were just talking about? The problems of you know, being quick to categorize and schema and things. We finance and tech both, and you and I are both on that, sitting on that kind of precipice of those two. But finance attracts high information, high status people that have very large pattern libraries, people that can compress things fast. And the industry is historically very compliance driven and credential driven. And so we tend to then mistake professionalism for differentiation, because there was a time when professionalism was the differentiation, because this industry was new and developing and professionalism was a differentiation.
Yeah.
And so we end up over indexing for these rational signals that we in our tribe understand, data and charts and, design polish. But when AI gets to the point where it's mastering this rational optimization that we're talking about, that we're so obsessed with, then that's when the real gap is exposed.
Yeah.
Most advisors don't really know what makes them distinct beyond competence.
Right.
And when professionalism is now the baseline and not the differentiation, and AI is eating up all the competence, all the value of competence, because the value is moving up. That's what I mean when I say value is moving upstream, is so much of the value is in competence and competence across broad strokes of things. But when I can have these things handled because I know what I'm looking for, because if I'm a true expert, I know what I'm looking for, right? Anyone can just use AI to look smart, but a professional knows what they're looking for from that. And that's very, very different. I'd made this point on Shannon Rosick's podcast the other day, a couple weeks ago, that when I'm working with AI on something that I'm an expert at, I'm picking at it all the time. Oh, you idiot! Like you missed this, and you missed this, and it's like, oh yeah, you're right, and oh, I missed this, and I didn't do this, and then the same exact guy, Joe, the same exact Joshua will ask it something that I don't know much about. And I'm like, well, great answer. I'm an expert now. And just walk away and just take it as a grain of salt. And then it dawned on me one day. I was like, man, I am the idiot. I'm the idiot that just takes AI at its word and believes it. Why? Because I'm not smart enough in that domain to even detect where the bias is, or what's just BS to begin with, or where it's hallucinated. And as that knowledge of those sorts of things becomes more well known, the AI can do those things, more people are going to be scared of AI. And it's not AI bad, human good. It's a human who can take all the AI and talk to and understand it, and then go talk to a human. That's the person that is the real differentiation. And that does not come from a template that helps you define your ICP.
Yeah, no, I want to go back to one of your points about the types of people that want to become financial advisors.
Mhm.
I think they have strong tendencies towards greed and pride and analytical type things.
Mhm.
Like literally one of Kitz's core values is no assholes, because there are a
Mhm.
lot of them in this industry. I'm sure there are a lot in others as well, but
Mhm.
like there's a lot of narcissists. There's a lot of very, very bad people managers in this industry. I don't want to be overly negative, because there's a lot of fantastic advisors and humans and lovely people in this industry too. I
Yeah.
want to try to focus more on the positive. Um, but I think that is interesting. So like I've been comparing AI to the One Ring a lot, and I was like, I think this is a little bit not nuanced enough. So I'm starting to think like, what actually does the One Ring represent? I think it represents like actual evils, like pride, greed, the seven deadly sins kind of thing. And so I'm trying to, so like you can use AI to do amazing good or amazing bad, and it's like any other technology. It's not bad or good. It's like how you use it. And
Mhm.
it's the human negatives that will make it bad or good, basically.
Mhm.
You agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the hard thing. You've got so many people preaching so many different messages. I see so many things on LinkedIn that are about how to use AI to appear to be an expert instead of actually being an expert.
AI. So that's the other thing I was going to say is like AI is not actually an expert. AI has taken all the best practices and made them all average. So now AI is
Love that.
literally not an expert in anything. Um, and so if you actually have a question you want to go ask an expert, AI should be like pretty low on your list of who you're going to ask. Um, and I think I'm in a bit of a privileged position to be able to ask actual experts in this space
Absolutely.
things. Like not everyone has that, but you can friend Joshua on LinkedIn or free connect, and ask him a question about how you can be more magnetic, and he might DM you back. And now you're talking to an actual expert as opposed to going and asking Chat GPT, which will have decent answers, but they won't be expert answers.
Yeah, and that's the struggle of it too, because it gives us the illusion that we can get quality for nothing, and I mean, I see this with. Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day who's telling me about peptide therapy. I don't know if you know about peptide therapy, all these different peptides you can take, and it's this health trend. Anyway, I won't get into all of that. And
all the stuff you just, learning about it from Chat GPT. And I'm like, dude, if I ever do this, I'm gonna go to a doctor. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I will do the I will read, I will come in conversant, the ability to have a conversation and familiar with things. But yeah, I don't want to put things in my body that I don't understand because Chat GPT told me this. And it's also, like, this came to life yesterday with a conversation I was having with a client. And so we're at the point of our relationship where I'm introducing her grand narrative and her magnetic offer thesis to her. This is my favorite part of working with the client. This is where we're saying, okay, this is the narrative of how we talk about everything that we do. Here's how we approach the things that you do. Here's how we approach. This is the words that we use. All these things, and she's loving it. And I had given her this thing to study before the next. Hey, here's to be prepared. Thorough handout. And as we begin to go through it, and I do some teaching in there, and then I also have, here's what it sounds like. And so we're actually giving different words, and we're going through it step by step. And she's like, okay, but and I start going through it with her and then articulating it and explaining it. And she's like, man, I really thought this handout was fantastic. I spent all weekend, poring over this 7-page handout that narrowed all these things that you've done down for me and how we're doing this. And then actually going through it with you, it just everything, my whole, so much value just coming from this conversation. I mean, you going through it with me. And I'm
Yeah.
like, was I recording this? I'm gonna need this for even the handout that I gave her to help this through. She's still taking notes and me talking through and going back and forth. She's like, this is the value, this is the value, this is the value of actually going through the coaching with you. And that's what we leave on the table when we try to go through these things ourselves, is that we're not going to get the nuance. And the nuance is the differentiation. And if we become a society where we don't respect anyone's craft because we're familiar with everything, and so we're an expert at everything, we've not embodied anything, then no one respects what anybody is doing, and everybody is trying to just get it all from AI. That's the thing we should be scared of, when we stop being willing to actually pay for expertise. And that's
Yeah.
where I ask myself all the time is, hey, is this AI or is this people? I want people using AI. That's what I want. That's the optimal solution for me.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's debatable. I definitely see the benefit in that. I think I want actual people that are using their brains. I'd much prefer working with an intelligent human that's like actively honing their actual brain than one that's augmenting their thinking with AI, or at
What?
least like augment your thinking with other experts, like actual experts. I mean, I literally have a podcast an hour a day, typically with an expert in some category or
Yeah.
another in this space. So like I'm augmenting, and I read a ton of books and I listen to a ton of podcasts, probably too much of everything. But it's interesting. There's like one specific YouTuber that I saw one of her videos, and I was like, she has the exact answer that I'm looking for
Huh.
my own business. Um, so now it's almost like, you know, uh, can't think of the right word. Tune out, yeah, like tune out Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozy and Michael Kitces and Josh Brown, and like just focus on her one video, and like I could solve, business problems for the next couple of years. But
Well,
it's
does it have to be a binary though, Joe? That's my only critique of this, because
yeah,
I think that you sound just like me until you put it into a human, not an AI. I'm like, okay, well, I think there's outsourcing thinking. That's one thing. Like, when you start outsourcing thinking and the deliverable becomes the AI, and the use of AI becomes the value that you add, that's not it. But using AI in your business, I mean, for example,
I'm gonna draw you a picture actually, because I'm actually gonna write about this subject, but I feel like I gotta draw it. So
yeah,
keep going while I draw this picture.
so I think that's what was I saying?
that I think it's a false binary between some, using AI or not using AI. I mean, this is kind of the funny thing about even LinkedIn is LinkedIn. I see all these posts about people saying that all there is on LinkedIn is just AI slop. I mean, that's bullshit. Sorry, BS. It's not all AI slop. There's tons of AI slop,
Yeah.
absolutely. But really, the funny thing is we have these different subjective standards for ourselves and other people. We all do it, where it's I'm using AI appropriately. It's the other people that aren't, and so it's all these people using AI to some extent, but then they've set up this straw man of here's the line of AI and I'm on the right side of it. Everybody else is on the wrong side. But we're not disclosing what our line is for how we use AI. That's
Yeah.
the thing that becomes dishonest to me is we become these virtue signalers of like everybody's using AI, everybody's AI slop, and most of these people are using AI in some part of their process.
Yeah, I mean, I ran a poll on LinkedIn, and basically the end result was 35% of people will distrust you. Will start their trust in you will decrease if they're aware that your content is a mixture of human generated and AI generated words, images, videos, etc. And I think that's a shortcut that the brain makes. Like as soon as I know that someone is starting to mix paragraphs that AI wrote in with their own writing, I distrust the entire thing a lot faster. There's someone I really respected that wrote something on organic growth, and I ran it through an AI tester, and it was like 93% AI, and I'm like, I can't ever respect anything they say again. I mean, that's an
Yeah, yeah.
exaggeration, but the point was like, that's really disappointing that they put something off as something they had written, and it was all very, very obvious that they hadn't written it because they're probably actually a good writer, and it sounded incredibly boring and long and
Dude,
paragraphy, and
I
it's
I love
frustrating.
it. I love you saying this. Okay, so I'm going to give you one of my gripes. Then one of the things that
Okay.
pisses me off is all the crap about M dashes.
Yeah.
M dashes is a tell. Dude, I hate that. I've been using M dashes for 20 years. And you know what? I've got 3 M dashes in the abstract of my dissertation, which was published before AI. Okay, so for me, is I'm keeping the M dashes. Nobody is taking it away from me. But here's the thing that really gets me is I find myself writing and I naturally use M dashes. In fact, I would say I probably overuse them because of just the cadence of how I speak. They came up a lot. I mean, just the mere fact that I had 3 in the abstract of my dissertation alone, which is about a paragraph, that tells you I probably was prone to overusing these things. It has caused me to look at my writing differently and say, oh, people are going to think this is written by AI because of the in dash. And I also, this came up with
Just put in a paragraph. I've started doing this. Like if I use a word that AI is known to use a lot, like thrilled or just some exuberant word, I start writing, I picked this word, not AI, because
that's hilarious.
it's
Even the like positive negative stuff like that's supposedly a tell. And I'm like, I was looking at some stuff that I wrote 10 years ago, and it's looking through it, and it's like I was it AI took this stuff from humans. It's not like it created these things. Now I never use the word delve, so that if you see me if you hear me say delve, I definitely would have got that. Yeah, but the funny thing is people are starting to uh, talk more like AI because they're reading so much AI. And now that the problem is going to shift from I'm writing, I'm using AI to I'm actually imitating AI.
yeah. No, that is fascinating. So I was talking with a copyright lawyer recently, and he's like Claude and or Anthropic and ChatGPT, OpenAI, like they're fighting all kinds of copyright cases right now because so much of AI is stolen, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so like if you just think about like creative thought or intellectual property, like AI is just mass theft, basically. So
Yeah.
if you just think about it like that, um,
Yeah.
I do want to show this picture, and then we
Sure.
can wrap up. I don't even know if you'll be able to see it. It's basically just a seesaw. So like there's a proverb that says like a righteous man avoids all extremes.
Yeah.
Um, So the seesaw is like pro AI on one side and anti AI on the other, and then I
Mhm.
have lines, and then there's like crazy on the other side. So like on either extreme, you reach a point where you're crazy.
Yeah.
But my point is like if everybody in this industry, every single thought leader is pro AI, it's like the seesaw is so hard this direction that the truth is somewhere in the middle. But if I say like mediocre things, it won't resonate. Like I'll be tuned out because it's just like, well, Joe's kind of like, nah. Like I literally, in order to get enough leverage to to balance it a little bit, I have to go a little bit into crazy territory. And I know I'm going into crazy territory, but like I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. But that's
No,
how I'm thinking
absolutely
about
it
it.
does, and I actually think it's smart. When you're in order to, because the part of the challenge is even getting people to listen to you, right? And if people know what you're going to say, I mean, what you're being is you're being provocative. I was trying to say the word
Provocateur.
provocateur, but I can't say that word. This is me being human, Joe. If you heard me use the word provocateur correctly, it was AI generated. That should be the test for AI Joshua. What in the world was I saying? Yeah, I think it's smart.
Oh,
You're
to get attention, you have to say outlandish things sometimes. I actually have to fight that a little bit because I think sometimes I know something will get attention and I know it's a bit far out, but sometimes I end up with like direct attacks on people and I don't want to get into that territory. Because I want to be a good human, you know.
Yeah, I feel that. I think it can be tough too when um, you know, when you're challenging something structurally. I mean, a lot of the things that I talk about I'm very pro marketing, and I love marketing and I love marketers. I work with marketers, but I'm also exposing the layers that marketing doesn't address.
Right.
And it's kind of funny because I had to a prospect that's going to be a client soon, that they're like, I talked to this marketing firm about you and mentioned them to you, and they're like, oh yeah, we do that, we do that, we do that. Yeah, we do that too, we do that too, we do that too. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going to hire this firm now because they told me they do what you did, and I've talked to you and I've talked to them, and they don't do what you do, and now I don't trust them because they're telling me you don't need him because we do that. And I was going to work with both. I still need a marketing firm, but I'm not going to work with a marketing firm that tells me this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's funny with marketing because again, I work with marketers. I think what they do is extremely valuable. Don't fire your marketers to work with me because I'm not trying to replace them. I'm working on the signal level and the pressure level. I don't do the tactics.
You're on the human level. You're like helping people find their identities.
Exactly, and a lot of that comes into it is ported into their brand. It's ported into their point of view. It's ported into the actual words that you use, the stories that they tell. How
Yeah.
much of what you're saying is actually kind of minutia and not all that interesting? What needs to actually be trimmed out and what needs to be elevated? Those sorts of things. Because what I'm doing, Joe, is I'm blending several things. It's behavioral finance, it's neuroscience, it's finance, it's positive psychology. I can keep going. There's a lot of things that I'm pulling into it, and I call it neurobehavioral finance.
Yeah.
It's the way that we interact with the market, the way that people are drawn to us, and that's the magnetism, that's the marketability, and it's new territory in doing this in finance, and it's hard to do this. The thing I like about it is it would be hard for other people to do this because I have been an advisor and because I have been in that role and I have been the grinder. I started in my career as a grinder,
Yeah.
chasing credentials and learning the pitches, learning all the funds, and trying to be the guy that knew the most and was the smartest guy in the room. And I grinded out a successful career doing that. And just what I knew, Joe, I mean, when I got into the industry, I had a degree in religious studies, 1 year of work history working for a church, and that's it. So I was just praying for my career and praying for your money because I didn't know what I was doing. And, so I had to grind it out, and then I had a few little things that happened. I was like, "Whoa, there's something else out here I need to explore that is beyond me just grinding it out." And now, success, the definition of it has changed for me a lot, Joe, in the last few years after having my second firm acquired. Now it's like I don't care as much about another one of those, another, start over, build another book and another. To me, it's much more about helping other people,
Yeah.
building an impact of I'm helping other firms to really make meaning out of this. And that's the thing that I think that is exceeded my expectations in what I'm doing is the meaning that people are getting out of this. Hey, I built this firm. Now I'm building something that's meaningful to me. I had a client the other day that's leaving a firm and starting her own firm, and she's not announcing yet. We're still, I think she's 2 months away from announcing. And she broke down in tears. She's like, "This is what I dreamed of. The
Yeah.
message I dreamed of. This is actually me. I see how this is going to sell. This is everything that I wanted. This is it. I've got a brand. I've got an identity. I've got a voice. I've got these sorts of things. It's just beyond I do financial planning."
Yeah.
And her goal is not to, have a big platform and do all these other things. I have clients that do have that goal as well,
Sure.
but I enjoy the ones that this is what I want, and this is true to her. She's got an amazing story, and it'll be integrated into why people choose her beyond just the technical things that she can accomplish.
Yeah. So we're moving beyond the tactics and the scripts and the playbooks and the best practices to the
Yeah.
real lead magnet, which is
Absolutely.
the
How can
human.
we develop the person into being the best magnet that they can get so they can work with the people that they want to work with? And I actually asked her the other day, he's like, "Hey, when we get a little further in this stuff, I want to ask you some questions because I want more people like you.
Yeah.
I love that I attracted you. She heard me on a podcast, and that's how she became my client. And I want more people like you."
Yeah. For sure. Well, I do have to wrap it up now. I gotta
Yeah.
actually go do something very human and pick up my kids. So
Sounds good, Joe. I've enjoyed it as always.
yeah, this was amazing. Thanks, Joshua.
Talk to you soon.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.